And now I would move on to our next plenary conference. And of course, it's really honored and a pleasure. And I'm really happy that I can have my colleague, Maria Gonçalves. Maria, she is a psychologist with a master's in social and organizational psychology, in which she presented a dissertation, a thesis on the theme. Well, actually really connected to what we are speaking about just now. So it is fear or not to fear, the threat of age stereotypes in technology adoption or by older workers. She has collaborated as a volunteer in a digital literacy project, and also she acted as a research assistant in a research unit in the University of Lisbon. Now she's a project manager at Aproximar, and she works, of course, in the unit of active aging and dependent care sector, but also across different activities. So Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joanna, and good morning to everyone. Hope you're feeling well, and this discussion has been so interesting. So it's an honor to follow this discussion. And I think Sabine actually presented a lot of important things that we built on to develop this project, which is the Pages, which is the one that I'm presenting, that we have been working, and the main focus of this conference that we bring for you here today. Like Sabine was saying, and she explained so well, that I might skip a little bit of this part of the theoretical background, because she basically explained why this initiative was necessary and how it came about. So basically, within the scope of the decade of healthy aging, one of the main objectives was precisely to combat AGEism. And AGEism, like Sabine mentioned, is a type of ism like racism and sexism that is related with stereotypes, prejudice, and discrimination, but in this case is against people based on age. So the truth is that AGEism has serious consequences for people's health and well-being, physical and mental well-being, and is actually associated with a lower life expectancy, poor physical health, cognitive decline, and increases loneliness. So a lot of things that we are trying to combat in this sense, and has become one of the focus of the World Health Organization. And they mentioned 3 strategies to reduce ageism. And like Sabine explained, one of them is the intergenerational interventions. And this is where the Pages initiative started and had its grounds. So these intergenerational interventions actually aim just to promote interaction between different generations. So it's not focused on young kids and older people. It's interactions between different generations. And we have a lot of intergenerational, like was mentioned before, intergenerational practices, learning activities, programs. But mainly intergenerational activities are social engagements and interactions that involve different generations with a common purpose. So these activities are shown to help reduce ageism through regular contact, and they shared experiences, and they challenge the prejudices and stereotypes that people might have. It was with this in mind that the Pages initiative became a transnational program of under the Erasmus Plus program. When we have, like it was mentioned in the beginning, 6 European countries working in this initiative, but we have 7 partners. And this project started in January 2022. So we have been working on it for the past 2 years. And our aim is to support the global campaign against and combat ageism. So we aim to promote intergenerational cohesion at the community level. And for this, we seek to improve, first of all, the capacities of adult educators and to engage them, older people, in lifelong learning activities. So we aim also to co-create an intergenerational program using, and this was the main thing, based on creativity and culture. So this is something that differentiates our program from others that already exist. And the main thing is to develop this program for tolerance and respect of age diversity. So this initiative was developed between 3 phases. The first of all was, like I was mentioning, the training for adult educators to promote lifelong learning. Then the second phase was this co-construction of the implementing intergenerational program based on arts and culture. And then the last but not least, the final resource that we are building is the replication model. So I will present a little bit each one of these parts so we can go a little bit more in depth to each one of them and understand what we did in each part and how we actually implemented these activities. So first of all, we sought to understand and to learn the needs of adult educators in developing and implementing lifelong learning activities. So we started with a literature review and collected of study cases, mainly good practices around all the countries that were in our partnership. And we also focused a little bit on focus groups to collect data from people in the fields. So this first report consisted in a more qualitative analysis, which explored this different perspective of adult educators and their main challenges in involving older people in lifelong learning activities, and to understand a little bit better the local situations regarding AGEism and in each of the partners field, but also at the EU level. Besides this survey, we also had this collection of practice that helped us a lot to understand the needs of these professionals. And in terms of the results, we found that the vast majority of professionals actually felt here some type of gap between the theory and the practices. They also lacked some specific knowledge regarding ageism and consequently some aspects of the aging process. Other barriers that actually were mentioned regarding the involvement of older people in lifelong learning activities were related to the ability to communicate and to engage people in activities, especially regarding how to reach people who are isolated and how to reach and to find them. In a more professional and particularly, they also reported difficulties in the lack of interesting and the lack of motivation and apathy from the side of the elderly. Based on these results, we built this professional training course for the adult educators, focusing on these main goals. So the first one was to strengthen the knowledge on how to engage older adults in lifelong learning. But also the promotion to fight ageism, so the exploration of prejudice in adult education in non-formal activities. The third main goal was to develop these strategies for the involvement of older people in education and intergenerational activities. And the last one was to exploration of the different adults learning processes and capitalizing arts and culture, which were the main focuses of our projects. In this way, we created this training course with 6 modules addressing these themes in a theoretical way, but combining them with practical activities, active learning activities, which the main was the creation of an action plan that they could actually use and implement in their daily work practices. And this training was implemented in the 6 countries with the total of 67 participants. You can see here the pre and post test regarding the skills balances. And even though it's a small differences between pre and post test, something that I like to mention here is that this first scale is really related to social disability because disability. So they are evaluating themselves on the knowledge that they have. So even though it has increased, the difference is not quite big, but it's funny to contrast with the knowledge acquired and evaluated before and after the test. And you can see here a bigger increase. So on average, the participants answered 7 more correct answers on the post-test compared to the pre-test. So, and also when we look at the qualitative level of the training, they actually evaluated quite positively, and they mentioned that it was a moment between professionals that allowed them to connect with their teams, have the realization of concrete actions that they could implement, exercises to promote reflection and communication, as well as the possibility to transfer knowledge from theoretical grounds to their daily practices. So this was the first part of our project. The second result of the PAGES initiative is the intergenerational program itself. So the main aim is for these professionals that were trained before to be the ones to bring this intergenerational practice to life. And with this end, we started, first of all, with a collective collection of interests and needs that we developed some workshops and consultation sessions with young people and other adults to understand their opinions, their interests regarding what is intergenerational program, what type of activities they would be interested in, what would motivate them to be engaged in this type of programs. So we did this first analysis, and we had 166 participants in the 6 countries consortium. And we collected this data using several methodologies to understand their needs and their interests here. Parallel to this, we also developed a training and co-creation action in Vienna that was carried out with 28 adult educators from different partner countries, which involved this part of a training, first of all, and development of skills regarding AGEism and intergenerational programs. But then we also had workshops and work groups of intergenerational activities and the role of arts and culture in these areas. So we started co-constructing with them the intergenerational program and that we are trying to develop here. So based on all of this collection of data and also funding ourselves in a more theoretical grounds, so we could build this methodological framework, we designed, as you can see here, this is very based on literature review and all the information that we collected before. This model proposes, as you can see here, an intervention group with the application of a pretest and the realization of separate initial learning sessions. This is based on the contact theory. And at the end of the first month, we would start the intergenerational activities with both groups together, and we would have activities during 5 months, sorry. And the frequency and the type of activities that would follow one another would be determined by each partner country according to their local interests and what they fits best to their groups. And as you can see here, these are the intergenerational program 9 different dimensions that we outlined. Within each of these sections of these dimensions, we developed one or more activities that would work this part of art and culture and would join these 2 audiences. In terms of the results, we are still in the implementation phase, and such we only have some data regarding the pre-test. However, we already have data from the pre-test from Portugal, Denmark, and Romania. And you can see here that we already had 75 participants from only these 3 countries. And basically what we can see here is that from the theory and from we know from the literature, each group should or is expected to evaluate their own in-group, so the group that they belong to. So a little bit more positively regarding the out-group. So basically what we expected here is for younger people to evaluate more positively their in-group, so the younger generations, and the older group to evaluate their in-group more positively. And you can see that quite well in the assessment of older adults. They evaluate quite higher and more positively their own in-group. But for the younger group, it's quite the same. So the mean average doesn't change between the 2 groups, which is quite interesting. And I think that once we do have the post-test results, this analysis will be more accurate, so counting with partners from the other countries' activities and everything. But here you can see some videos and some pictures of the activities that we have been implementing in some of the countries. But as I mentioned, some of us are still finishing our activities, so we don't have more results in this part to share with you. However, the last part of this initiative is the replication model that we have been developing throughout the project, which the main goal is precisely for institutions, individuals, communities, other stakeholders and interested parties can reach this model and replicate it in their local realities. So before providing this last version of the replication model, what we did was we asked experts from each of the countries' partnership for an evaluation. And what we have obtained some results from these experts is that regarding the first outputs, so the training, was actually evaluated as something very relevant and aligned with standards of adult training. But there's still some improvements that we could do, mainly regarding the long-term impact of the program, of the training regarding attitudes and behavior changes. And regarding the second results, the expert mentioned that it was a very interesting program and it's easy to adapt to different audiences and to support is theoretical. It was actually very well supported and theoretical, but also in methodological framework. And some experts also detailed some things regarding providing more cultural nuances. And this is actually something that we identified in the beginning of the project and along the way of the project, is that even the concept of AGEism is not really the same between the partners countries, and what people perceive from this concept also changes the way that we need to intervene and to present it, and most of all, how to fight these stereotypes and prejudice. So last but not least, I would share with you just a little bit of the structure of this replication model, which you can see here. So there will be several parts focusing on the training and the intergenerational program itself. And then we'll follow with the replication strategies and also local adaptations and recommendations regarding the whole project. With this motto and with no further ado, I invite you also to follow all the social media so you can reach our website and access the replication model as soon as it's published. So this was basically the whole initiative of the pages. I'll just stop the screen presentation. It was a lot of information that I just spill out, but I hope you got the big picture.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for the full presentation. I think it was quite comprehensive in terms of what we have delivered. Well, of course, that for those that were there, we are always missing, and I know for sure that Ms. Judith will speak about that. There's this relational part which we cannot put on the slides. What we have been gaining for these moments. I'm trying to check if there are some questions on the chat that you want to ask for the project. I see that Ana Maria is already putting on the chat some links for the website and for the Facebook, but as you were mentioning, there are still some resources to be released and that you can later on access it. Of course, I will be much more partial in making some comments or questions, as I have been along with Maria Gonçalves during the activities. But maybe, Maria, you could also give your comment or your direct or personal professional view on the main challenges. I know that you made a reference to the cultural part. And I think that we have faced this, especially in terms of the training of adult educators across different countries, but also from your personal experience from the activities, what have been the challenges in putting different generations together?
It's quite funny because here in Portugal, we already have some of the post-test data also. But the main thing is, even though people do have these prejudice and these preconceived ideas of what an older person or a younger person is, when they are together, they're quite open to one another. And it's quite fluid and it's quite nice, their interactions and everything that goes around. Once they are apart again and you ask them again what is their idea of the other group, their preconceived ideas are still there. And when we reference the group that they were with, they say, oh, but they're different. They were nice, they were kind, they are different. I'm speaking about other whatever. So I think the main thing is for ideas, we need to work in a more consistent way and not just with some activities, even though it's in our methodological framework, we aimed for 6 months. And with the frequency of the activities, this might get a little bit nuanced. But yeah, for sure, it's the quality of the engagement and the relations that we developed that make a change regarding this type of ageism that we are facing.
Okay, thank you. I also have one question from Ana Carrillo, and she's asking, how do you think the media can contribute to combating ageism? I think this is a very big question. And she says that professionals also need this type of training and use correct language and behaviors, even though it may not be your expertise. Maria, do you want to comment something on that?
Sure, yeah. For sure, there has been a lot of data analysis regarding the media and what has been posted, especially during COVID. There was a lot of ways that both generations were portrayed, the younger and the older generations were portrayed, that was quite negative and has a lot of impacts. And even though that people sometimes when we are speaking, we don't notice it, it actually has really big and negative effects in the long term. And Joanna and I have discussed this for a long time. Even kids, for example, Joanna has given her example that she doesn't know where they do get these preconceived ideas of how another person is supposed to look like. But then they are faced with a counter-stereotypical person, and they say, oh yeah, but that's one person, that's that person. And they still have the prejudice and the preconceived ideas that is portrayed in movies and in the media all the time. So it's very systematic and is very interesting in our society. So yeah, media has a big role to play here, and we need to change the way, not only that the way we speak, but the way we showcase the different generations.
Thank you, Maria. I see there are a lot of people also replying on the chat, and I will let it flow. So thank you again, Maria Gonçalves, for your presentation.